Okay. All right, dude, you ready to rock this out? We're going to rock this out.
Yeah.
You sure? You sure about that?
Always.
All right.
This call is now being recorded.
But I don't like that new voice for it. By the way, that's our intro song. This call is now being recorded.
Nice.
It used to be a pleasant woman saying, this call is now being recorded. And now it's a guy saying, hey, you just pressed record, asshole. Well, everyone out there, thank you for being with us. We are straying away from Halloween movies, horror movies, for a while for obvious reasons. We will do some episodes on music and comedy and other kind of things besides political episodes. But what we got today is a hard-hitting political episode. I've been wanting to do this for a long time. I've felt this for quite some time. And basically, it's income inequality. We're focusing on America. The world could certainly be included, but there's a big difference between the basically the what do you call it, the developed world and the undeveloped world. There's big differences, and some countries haven't even had an industrial revolution yet. So with me, of course, is Dirty Mouth, by the way, Mouth.
Yeah.
Morgan with an F. Hey, how you doing?
Good. How you doing?
Good, man. I'm Dylan. Let's get into this. This is a big subject, and this is, I'm going to try to tell you right away where we're going to try to divide this in terms of chapters or themes. Number one, we're going to talk a little bit about average income, advantages that the rich have versus the poor. We're going to talk about inflation that has hit America in a devastating fashion, not just in the last couple of years during COVID, but it's been building and rising for years as far as the cost of goods versus average income. We'll talk about the American way, right? The American dream. Is it alive? Upward mobility opportunities for people in the lower class to get up to the middle class to, well, I wouldn't even say get up to the upper class. I mean, that is the dream, but we're also going to include the middle class just to stay middle class. Some people don't care about being a part of the upper class. They just want to remain a constant part of the middle class. How hard is it these days? We're going to talk about something that I've noticed in companies I've worked for that I find very disgusting, and it's the power that investors or stockholders, not employees, people that buy into your company, the power that they have versus employees, which drastically needs to change, I believe, for American companies to thrive more, and for us to get better customer service too, by the way, and better service in general. I'm going to touch upon student debt relief. Affects me a little bit more than Dirty over there. I think you are free and clear as far as when it comes to student debt. I have some.
I have some. I've had some, but I finally paid it off, and then
good for you.
It was in collections and whatever, but I got it paid off, so I didn't get a big.
Perfect. Okay. We'll talk about that briefly. There's currently a motion that they're trying to do. Basically, the Democrats are trying to push a bill to Office of Student Debt Relief, and it's being squashed by the jerks. And then lastly, we'll talk about the transfer of wealth, different time periods of this extended transfer of wealth from the poor or the middle class to the rich. Most of the middle class, the poor don't have a lot to give. They just have more to lose, I guess. And then, so yeah, we'll end up with that and maybe a few side notes. Now let's start out on Dirty. I'm going to give up a little bit of statistics here. There's going to be an article I'll read about billionaires. The big thing to start off with, Joe, is just the increase in the amount of billionaires and the destruction of the middle class, the destruction of middle class jobs, the destruction of middle class incomes, and the destruction of basically the lessening of the amount of benefits that are being offered as well. To start off with, is there anything that you've noticed, before I get into some real stats here, could you give me just a general, doesn't have to be too long, a general thesis or idea of your understanding of how billionaires are growing, the middle class is declining. The lower class is there. And where do we go from here? How disgusting is this?
It's bad. I've taken a trip. I took a trip last summer. Well, even where I live in Juneau, Alaska. At my job, in the parking lot, you can see like I call them homeless caravans, where people are like living in their cars. They'll get 2 or 3 cars together and set them up. And you'll see them around, especially when it starts to warm up. But I was in Chicago. I saw that. I was in Portland. I saw a lot of that. And I was in Seattle. And it's all over. I mean, if you look up the population on Skid Row in LA, it's like quadrupled over the past like 10 years. And these are like all newly homeless people. For various reasons, they lost everything. And it's just, we live in a crazy world where it's like, society will tell you, the systems, education and your parents and everything, they'll tell you like, if you work hard and, save your money, you'll be able to move up and, live comfortably. But it's, unless you blow up and become some kind of famous person, or, you have a gadget that's, that can be, sold, it's like, a lot of this money, a lot of these wealthy people, a lot of this money is inherited. And it's just, you can see it. There's people, you see a lot of homeless people. It's just, it's insane. A lot of drug addiction, and that's connected. You can find a connection between drug addiction and poverty.
Yeah. Anytime you have a decline of opportunity, you're always going to see an increase of crime. Right. It's just natural as a human being. It's the sense of survival. Right. The sense of what someone's willing to do for either their family or themselves to keep their heads above water, and it's just a fact of life. Which leads me again, I know we talked about this before, the Michael Moore movie, Roger and Me, about when all the auto jobs left Detroit or the surrounding areas, and how the things that the businesses that thrived were repo businesses, jails grew, and prisons grew in size. Of course, there was investors for those. So what a beautiful thing, huh? You decimate a town and basically invest. If you're rich, you take your money and invest in a repo company. So you know what grew heavily is sign makers. They were making signs out of business, for sale, need work. I mean, all these kind of different signs that people would put on their lawn. I mean, they went through the roof. Right. So let's get into specifics of rich versus poor, and not how we're going in the wrong direction with this. Here's an article. I basically took articles from 3 different places. Forbes for amounts of wealth which versus poor, and specific statistics for that. Newsweek for some articles about businesses, maybe small business versus big business, and Wikipedia for some lists about, which I'll get into later, of where we lie in America versus the rest of the world with upward mobility opportunity. So it starts with, let me see, and this is called American for taxfairness.org. It's a .org website started by Americans like you and me, basically middle class America, that are doing research and finding the statistics and saying, hey, wait, something wrong is going on here. So let's get into this. Growth in total wealth of U.S. billionaires during the pandemic to start. Excuse me. The total wealth of U.S. billionaires grew by $1.3 trillion during roughly the first 11 months of the coronavirus pandemic, a 44% spike in wealth. This increase in wealth is more than it would cost to send a stimulus check of $3,900 to every one of the roughly 330 people in America. So basically, you take 330 million people in America, give them a check of $3,900, and it would match the profits that the top billionaires made in this country. And we know that during the pandemic, I was taking a look at the richest people in America, going from 60 million to 90 million, billion, what am I talking about, billion, to next year, Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos are worth $250 billion.
Yeah.
And they have these mansions the size of cities.
Right.
And it's really disgusting. And it's another interesting note here. The U.S. added 50 billionaires during this period, during the pandemic, increasing from 614 to 664, which, by the way, the amount of billionaires has doubled in the last 10 years in America, while over the last 50 years in America, the middle class has decreased by about 15%. I know that doesn't sound like a lot, 15%, but that's 1/7 of the total population that has moved. Now, they haven't all moved down to the lower class. There's been a tiny little speck that has gone up to the upper class, but most have gone down to the lower class. Let's take a look at some more stats. Dirty, if you ever want to add anything too, just start talking. I'll stop the stats for a second. In March 2020, they weighed the total wealth of U.S. billionaires from 1990 to 2020, and total number of U.S. billionaires, I guess that's redundant, but the total wealth of U.S. billionaires grew from $240 billion in 1990, adjusted for inflation, to $4.18 trillion in March 2021. The total wealth, adjusted for inflation, $240 billion to $4.18 trillion in March of 2021. That is an astronomical percentage growth in the amount of total wealth, which, by the way, there's a little interesting statistic for you. I got notes all over the place with this episode. The top 1%, we know we've talked about 1%ers versus the rest of the world. The top 1% own half in the world of the total wealth.
Yeah.
The top 10% owns 85%. And of course, the top 10% includes that 1%. So you take the top 10%, 85% of the wealth is owned by 10% of the people.
Mm-hmm.
The rest of the 90% own the bottom 15%. To further this article we got here, that's a total of, we're talking about $240 billion versus $4.18 trillion. That's a difference of 17 times the net worth that the top percent has grown. Well, and so there's a slight dip when billionaires' total wealth fell by a small percentage during the Bush junior years, which everyone was making less money then, except for a few people. As a result of the Great Recession, it shot up 160% from 2010 to March of 2021. And let's see what else. There's a few other stats in here. Let's see if any of them are noteworthy. Well, okay. Well, as I look this over to see if there's anything else that's noteworthy. Dirty, what do you have to say about this? So few people owning so much of the wealth. Is it just that they're that much smarter than everyone? We know that there's people on the bottom, some people at the bottom and the middle, and guess what? The top two that are willing to just kind of coast and aren't really working that hard. You can say what you want about the culture of the different classes in America versus the real world. What do you think? Are these people I guess they're just that much better than us, huh? They just deserve it. They should have the control over everything. So what do you think?
Yeah, it's a whole system created to benefit wealthy people. Taxes, like not increasing the minimum wage. A lot of the careers that people want to go into just aren't there, or they're not in existence. It's fucked up. It's sad, and it's like Okay, I don't know, man. You go ahead.
Well, no problem. What do you think about not just the minimum wage, but should we cap a maximum wage? I mean, when I see his stupid fucking face, and this isn't just personal, I mean, it's really a part of the culture more than any of the specific billionaires. There's some billionaires I find fine. Warren Buffett. I mean, there's some people that do agree. I don't think Bill Jobs is that disgusting. I know he had some major affairs on his wife. He might have been involved with the Jeffrey Epstein thing. I don't know. I can say that by the way he has been a pretty heavy philanthropist. I'll give him some credit for that versus, say, Dick Dort Musk that owns X.
Are you talking about Bill Gates?
I was talking about Elon Musk. First I mentioned Bill Gates and Buffett, Warren Buffett, is the two people who actually agree that rich people should be taxed more.
Yeah.
As opposed to...
Well, I have to disagree about Bill Gates. Like, that guy's, he's shady too. He bought up a bunch of, oh man, I'm off today.
No, I know what you mean. He did. A bunch of small companies.
Yeah.
And not only did he buy them out, some of them he just stole their ideas and basically said, go ahead and try to sue me. Like, I'm worth so much more than you. I'll torque you into the ground. Right. All the money that he ended up giving in a philanthropic way, he could have just let those other businesses thrive. And guess what? Those things are part of the destruction of the middle class.
Right.
Small businesses that are trying to thrive and create their own ideas without getting a handout from them, without saying, okay, buy my business and lay everybody off and just take it for yourself. They want to be a part of the manufacturing class, of the small business owners that can actually see if their ideas can grow and prosper based off of what? Capitalism. The whole fucking point of the whole goddamn country is that if you have good ideas and you have get your idea off the ground to see if it's something that will actually keep pace with other big companies.
Yeah. It's
so other ways that. So go ahead.
I would say it's an unfair and cruel.
What do you think about a maximum wage proposal? Or do you think it's just I guess the argument I always had with my dad over the years is that he says, oh, it stifles productivity at the top. The top people aren't producing any fucking more.
Right.
Okay, the top people are just stealing, like Bill Gates, like you mentioned, they're stealing ideas that when you become that big and powerful, it's hard to even compete with those guys. The bigger they get, the more it lessens opportunities for small businesses to compete in the arena. Especially when they start making everything being made in third world China or in Korea or different islands they're giving all the industry to these to these other countries that doesn't those aren't American jobs. Apple,
they don't treat
Microsoft, all these other.
They don't treat the people there well either. They get paid like pennies or quarters. So it's a shit.
They get an average of $2 an hour.
Right, if that.
If that.
You mentioned Steve Jobs, like that guy, like he had some great ideas, but it was like his entire, it's like the Elon Musk thing where he had great ideas, but it was like all his engineers that were really the people with the magic to make the iPhone so big. The same thing with Elon Musk. Like he didn't design the car. He's a good idea. Like he's good at presenting shit, but he's not like a genius like he says he is. He took a lot of like U.S. government loans. The guy came here from South Africa. He comes from wealth. His dad's a diamond mogul. He grew up in apartheid South Africa, so he's okay with like oppressing people and being a racist douchebag. To be honest,
bring your ideas to America.
Right, and then I'll steal them from my engineers, and then sign the document saying like you have to give me all the credit. I mean, what kills me is like how that guy, when I first heard about him, they would compare him to like Tony Stark or Iron Man, and it's like, are you fucking kidding me? That first of all, Iron Man was a superhero. If you're gonna get technical,
and not real,
and he's not real because, in my opinion, even if like a wealthy person could be a nice person, wealthy people, the rich in this country are within their own society, and we're supposed to cave to them, and and they can treat us like shit. I mean, the Kardashians, for a while, like I think they're banned from like, I want to say I heard that like the city of LA fucking bans them from like taking up blocks of streets with their fucking cars. The Kardashians are a perfect example. They don't have shit. They just have a show about them making things that,
getting naked
and porn, and getting fucked. And it's just, I used to joke with my son and be like, all we need to do is just be on TV and talk about nothing, and we can be on, make lots of money. But
Let me mention something real quick.
Yeah.
Elon Musk did not create the electric car.
No, he
did not create the electric cars. They were coming out in the 1990s. Major manufacturers were trying to get them made. We've talked about this before, crushed by the gasoline industry.
Right. He just marketed it better. That's the only thing I give him credit for.
Right. And in different ways, too. There's so many ways that, Dirty, as you mentioned before, for the rich to stay on top. First of all, obviously, money begets money. Money turns into, in America, has turned into political influence.
Right.
Major political influence. When you talk about different ways that rich people hoard their wealth, number one, whatever they say they're making a lot more than that. We know that they hide lots of money in offshore accounts,
right,
in different countries where they pay off people basically to keep large amounts of money for them so they don't have to report it for taxes. We know that they pay accountants, the top accountants in the world. They pay a lot of money to those people to not have to pay their full amount of taxes, to escape for as much as possible. And anybody that doesn't think, I know Martha Stewart was the only one recently that was caught. Anybody that doesn't think there's massive amounts of insider trading going on stocks with different companies is a fool. As if these people are not either commiserating together about what the next big thing is, but actually planning ahead of time. There are a lot of companies that actually take a company that has a good name, they bastardize that name by making a lesser inferior product and living off of that name of a good product. Once it starts to go down, once it caps, then what do they care? They have a million other, they hold stock in many other companies. They just let that company go.
Yeah.
Forget it. Like once you squeeze the proper amount of juice, once you juice that company enough, you can then sell your stocks that it's high, you can get or around anywhere around that, and buy into another company that has a good name. I can't remember I think Mariano's was the company. I'm here in Chicago. Mariano's was bought out of a nice little store that was the son of the Dominic's owner, I believe, started once Dominic sold. And he sold that to, I believe, Safeway, either that or Kroger. And slowly but surely, the service of the product has gone down.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that they aren't still a good store, but I've talked to people that work there. I'm not actually a shopper. Mariano's. That's just one example of you take a good product, whatever the product is, whatever industry it is, you take that product that has the good name, you slowly decline the product's value by, not the value, you slowly get the output, basically, how good the product is, by basically offering a cheaper substitute to a lot of these things, either in the type of employees you have, less managers, more hourly employees, less product that you're using, you're your great name to, well, eventually people wise up to it and say, hey, this isn't Mariano's anymore. By that time, the major investors have moved on to their next damnation. As far as running a company's name into the ground, it happens quite a bit. Let me see, what else can we talk about? Besides, we've talked about just how they infiltrate government, how they have a hand certainly in how bills are passed, whatever type of tax cuts they can get by industry. I can tell you another thing is that they heavily lobby the government for more dastardly things than that. The Walmart kids for years, the Walmart children inherited the business from the father, has given a lot of money to politicians that aim to get rid of national education. So besides, having all the money, they try to rig the rules to stay on top. Now, national education obviously is taking money from poorer areas, putting that in the richer areas, putting it into poorer areas, so that those children can get updated books, so that they stand some kind of a chance against these richer schools to try to go to college. How can you go to college in 2023 if you have a textbook from 1969?
Right.
It's just going to be that much harder. Also, a lot of these rich people, they go to private schools. They're paying to go to private schools. They don't for their kids. They don't want to pay for the local education, the public school for everyone else's children to go to. They'd rather that those schools have less money, that they don't have to give money for that. So, of course, make sure that their kids get a much better education, and that the rules are rigged for them once they get to college. And if that's not enough, they'll go the Lori Lawson route and actually pay for their kids to get into school. And again, just like Martha Stewart, anybody that thinks that this is a one-time thing because she's the only one that got caught, you're a fool. I mean, for years and years, you can go back to the Bush kids going to Yale and all kinds of family fortunes that are involved with what type of education these kids get. The rules are rigged much more than we think, and we actually live in a society where it is a classist society. Maybe not like India quite as much, but Jerry, I'm sorry, anything you want to say about what we're talking about with rules being rigged? The
thing that's fucked up is about colleges and universities is like, first of all, there's too much hype, and secondly, a lot of kids, a lot of people who deserve to go, who are fucking, top notch, they get fucked up, they're fucked over by, wealthy people and alums. Like, there's a whole thing where and that, like you said, it was that, with Master saying, it's like, you find out all these rich people, they lie the resume, they beef it up, they make up all this shit, and the kids can't even fucking, they don't even, they're not smart enough, and they're not worth it. Like, they lie and they get in, and it's just a mark on their resume, and then they get a job and they're set, or they get an inheritance. It's really sad, and I mean, you could so tired of that shit. Like, there's this whole myth of like, we'll go to school, get an education, start a career, and that's all myth now. Like, and
is that what you meant by hype?
Yeah, they hype it up like, it's the American dream. You go to school, you get a good career, you start in a good career, and then you move your way up, you get a house, and shit, and that's all bullshit. Like, it's and you can see it. Like, it just doesn't exist. You could talk to a person who's in medicine and ask how much they're fucking like paying after first year doctors or residency, and it's like they're paying a shitload of money, and it's like that's just bullshit, and it wasn't always like this. So.
I'm glad the reason why I asked you is when you said hype, I'm glad you went back to that and described it. I was going to break in there and say, well, what do you mean by hype? Because I wanted you to extend upon that. Currently, you can make a big argument that instead of going to a 4-year school, if you have to take loans to do it, man, is it not worth it. You're going to do what? Take got $100,000 in loans to afford to go to a 4-year school, even more, go to a graduate school, or could you maybe go to a trade school and get a different job for a lot less money, or even pay for the majority of that being becoming some sort of apprentice to somebody who has a skill that'll teach you the skill. I can tell you this, that throughout the years, as American jobs have gone overseas and become extinct, one of the things that people are talking and saying is, well, get re-educated. Come up with another, that was Bill Clinton's famous thing when the free trade agreement sent lots of jobs over to Mexico and different parts of especially Mexico. And people were like, where are American jobs going? And he wasn't, they had been going in other directions before him. Right. But man, did that push it in a heavy direction one way. And what he said is, no, why don't you get re-educated, go back to school, get a different trade. And as what has it done is people have amassed large amounts of student debt, going to school to try to get a degree. And I'm going to say something personal about this as far as personal experience. We'll talk more about the student debt relief later on. But I actually did have to go back to school. And in fact, in my employment history, we'll just say since I've been to Chicago, which has been 25 years, I worked I got my bachelor's degree in my 20s, and I was working basically in retail while I was going through coffee shops and stuff, while I was going through my school to help pay for some of it, at least for my rent and other things I had to pay for. And I became management in my 20s, not Starbucks manager, but say small coffee shops, bread shops, things like that. Finally, after my degree, the job that I had worked for years in children's toys, actually, I started out in the warehouse, worked myself into customer service. I just got hired as a salesman after I got my degree, found out that the company's North American operations were being shut down and moved to Japan and France, I guess. So then I quickly regrouped and got into Potbelly sandwiches, which talk about them when it comes to PPE loans and bastardizations of who got those during the pandemic because they are guilty. Went and worked for Potbelly sandwiches. What a shitty job that was. Working nights, weekends, holidays, I must have worked 15 different stores all over the Chicago area. And they declined to give me raises, declined to move me up. And as I saw, they were actually declining as a company that I would figure out later on. But anyway, I changed from food service retail I went into insurance and sold insurance. Got hit with the 2008-2009 economic crisis where I was working for an insurance company that I was in sales, probably had the most expensive insurance you can have. And when it comes down to the price, when people are hurting for money, you're going to fail. So I did that for a couple of years. I finally I was about to hit 40. I'm thinking, what the fuck is going on? Like, I've got too much brain power to be sitting here going through different assistant management positions in retail. And I finally, with the help of my wife, honed in on registered health information technology, which I took a look at the jobs list and found out that was a job with supposedly lots of opportunities over the next 10 years. What I found out is that after I graduated, and the graduation rate was minimal, you had to get a certification for that. Only maybe 30% of the people that graduated got the certificate. I got it right away and got into management, luckily, and been working there for 7 to 8 years. Now, a lot of other people actually went from minimum wage jobs, say working for a gas station, said, you know what, I want something better. They went in and they got a loan to get a registered health information technician degree. They got out of there, and that's not just to be like an associate, that's training to be management. They got out, made the same amount of money if they could get a job in medical records or coding that they did to start out, that they were making in their previous profession. The difference is they had $50,000 in loans now. So there's an example of ways that getting education, trying to change, trying to actually make more money for your family, and you get lied to, basically. If there's something there that's really not. And guess what? A lot of the hospitals, when you tried to get a job there, said, we're not going to train you. If you want to come here and we'll let you come and work for free for a while so you can actually get the training that you need to get a real job. That's what their comeback was to that. It's fucking gross. It's disgusting. That's not progress in my opinion. So, Gary, I didn't know if you had any personal experiences you wanted to talk about with that. Before we move on, we've got 6 different topics to cover. We've only covered the first one so far. Anything before we move on to inflation?
No, let's talk about it.
Cool. Also, too, currently, what are we at for time? Are we at like 25 minutes or something?
We're at 35 minutes.
We're at 35 minutes. Okay, so we started at, say, 3:45. All right, that's something we got to watch. All right, inflation. So inflation, as you know, is the cost of goods and services versus how much you get paid. Inflation, as far as how much money you have to spend on goods and services that you need. Inflation is how much it's going to increase for the cost of goods and services versus what you make. Now, we've seen this go up exponentially. It started with, of course, college education, something we talked about in the previous chapter. It hits the hardest. The things that inflation hits the hardest are the things that everyone needs, including the lower class. If you're lower class, you can't do without gas, food, and rent. You have to live somewhere, you have to eat, and you have to drive to your job. Those are the 3 biggest areas, not to mention price of going to a concert, the price of going to see a movie, the price of going to basically a ball game, I guess, if you want to take your kid to a ball game. I mean, all these things are so much harder to do now as they were before. Dirty, let's get into this as far as how much more things cost now. Certainly during COVID, we saw a huge increase in the cost of food for obvious reasons that people were getting sick and they were producing a lot less chicken than they were before, a lot less eggs, all these types of things. What have you experienced as far as in your days here of inflation versus what people make?
I just found it just weird and disgusting that, these corporations would raise the price of the products. I mean, that's what it is. Like they control the situation. And all of a sudden it's like when people are the most vulnerable and needy, they decide, well, they thought it'd be a good idea to raise the cost of every fucking thing. I found it very cold-blooded. There was during COVID there would also be moments or there'd be companies that, like for instance, my daughter likes sriracha, so I guess there's an herb out of Croatia, and they couldn't produce it, so they stopped making that. And just stuff like that where it started to affect production. You had people who were sick. They were forced to work during COVID, where it'd be a meat packing plant, and this is where you learn about environments and people's work, especially manual labor, and there'd be like a meat packing plant, and a bunch of people are sick, and they're fucking touching the meat. They're sick. You're forced to work, or they get fired. Had no choices, and so then it's they're sending the shitty product and then overcharging you for it. How people are treated in the food service industry, it's the other part of it, is you get paid shit and then you get treated like shit by the public.
But then supposedly you're an essential employee. You're so essential to work at a grocery store, but yet we're going to pay you minimum wage. There's something off with that. If you're essential, yet you're so needed, but you're not really worth to pay anything more than what minimum wage is. Right.
What's interesting right now is there's a lot of unionization going on around the country. For Amazon, oh my God, Amazon is a textbook classic example of slave labor. Like, they treat people like shit. The drivers get fucking, if they're black or like, not white, they get threats from fucking Karens. They can't pee. There's like, I guess people pee or, you know, go to the bathroom next to the workstation. Jeff Bezos is trying to like fly to Mars or wherever the fuck, while his employees who make him the money, are suffering. So they try to, you know, unionize. Starbucks has been unionizing, and Howard Schultz is a fucking jagoff who during the hearing was arguing that it's unnecessary, and it's like, I don't know. And I worked at Starbucks, and I know how people get treated at, you know, there. It's a lot of kids and college students, and, you know, people treat them like garbage. McDonald's, they unionized, a couple years ago. Like, there's all these companies, and, you know, a lot of places don't have health insurance. So it's just like you're dependent on this company because you have to live and you have a family or whatever the fuck. And, you know, if you're fortunate enough to go out and do things, great. But for the most part, most people have 2 or 3 jobs. Like, was it Walmart? It's notorious for having like a high population of government aid recipients, and it's like, you gotta be fucking kidding me. These people make billions of dollars, and they can't fucking help the employees out. Like, I guess this is why I'm not rich. I mean, aside from like, I don't come from a rich family or whatever, but it's like, I always feel like if I was wealthy, like, my wife would complain that I'd be giving money away too much. There's so much money in the world that it wouldn't even affect the wealthy, and you could feed people. Like, you don't even, if they distributed the money in the world, from everybody who's wealthy, especially the billionaires alone could save the world. Like, they could feed everybody, they could, you know, they could help out, you know, you got people who get sick, like, you know, and we're like one of the few countries that believes in socialized medicine, and it's like, you know, people get sick, it becomes a major financial downfall. You know, especially when you get older and you know, like you start entering your 40s and 50s, you could have a heart attack or something. Your body isn't as healthy, and your health becomes a big factor in your finances, and it's just it just kills me. It's like, I don't know how they keep coming out with newer cars and newer technology, a new phone or whatever, and people are fucking starving. And it's like we have no priorities in this country except for the fucking wealthy. I mean, right now, Biden is talking about giving Ukraine, Israel, and Taiwan each like $100 billion or more so, and it's like all that money could be used to help us, and it's like we give aid, and it's like, you gotta be fucking kidding me. This country's broke, sick, and illiterate, and you're trying to help other countries that try to help out other warlords and oppressing people. I mean, Israel has fucking socialized medicine and fucking free education, free healthcare. And it's like, we're paying for that. And it's like, what? I don't get it. Like, that's one of the things lately that's been just kind of pissing me off is like, you know, defense. We spend all this money in defense for what? To go destroy countries, create fucking terrorists to go and, you know, freak out and come home after destroying a country and treating people like shit. You know, defense contractors, like, there's all these factors. But yeah, corporations are the worst. The NRA, they're fucking wealthy. We got mass shootings, people dying all the time. Don't want to do anything about that. And I'm not trying to veer off into that subject, but the point is, it's like, it's amazing how the NRA, gets away with that, and it's like, we don't do anything about it, and it's like, people are broke. You had a Kyle Rittenhouse piece of shit who got fucking got COVID money, went and bought an AR-15 and killed 2 people. And it's like, where the fuck is the priority in this country?
Now, when we're talking about government spending, and we talk about social programs, about what are needed to help people creating opportunities, we're not talking about, one thing we hear a lot from the other side is, oh, it doesn't work. It works enough so that you definitely need it, number one. Number two, I'm not against oversight committees to actually oversee these businesses and hold them accountable for our tax dollars to make sure they're being correctly. Here in Chicago, we pay a lot of taxes, and we don't see a lot in return for what we spend our money on. At least it doesn't seem like that to me. The roads are terrible. There's still rampant crime. So you definitely need oversight committees to make sure that this money is being spent correctly. And you need accountability, and you need for these companies to be, like I said, held accountable to know exactly, to make sure that this money is transparency, I guess is the word I'm looking for. Yeah, actually, technically, the Republicans want to take, as far as money, they want to take money out of, they want to do away with the IRS.
Yeah.
To pay for giving more money to
Israel.
Meanwhile, there's again, I know we got to stay on topic here. There are some protests going on around the world to cease fire. I know that they took captives. Hamas took hostages.
They're releasing them.
They are releasing them, but I don't know if all of them have been released. That is a means for people to keep going after you. If you have not released all of the hostages, and guess what? Maybe if you can find something good about this, maybe people can listen to any type of leaders in Palestine, as far as nobody has so far. But why did you attack? What's going on? What do you need? What differences do you need as far as to go forward? A give and take as far as we'll release the hostages. And 30, I'm sorry, we can't spend any more time on this subject. We got so much more to talk about. I'm finishing what you brought up. Some sort of exchange for the hostages. What do you want? What are you looking for? Do you want us to just let you be and stop interfering as far as America? For Israel, I mean, it means that Israel's going to do whatever they want. If we don't intervene, if we stop intervening with Israel too on their side, I guess consider Palestine destroyed a little bit, because the world right now is actually trying to say, you know what, that's enough, Israel. Like, in America, hopefully, is going to get on the side of, like, why don't you do a ceasefire? Let's lessen the amount of devastation there. Anyway, let's move on to directly related to inflation, which is what we were talking about. Let me go on to another topic before we go into upward mobility. Transfers of wealth. We were talking about the high price of gas, food, rent, and everything else that families and individuals have to pay for versus how much more they're making at their jobs, which is not a lot more. I mean, people are making 1 to 2%. We're seeing 1 to 2% increases per year on average over the last 50 years in income. Meanwhile, we're seeing these 50%, 100%, 200%, 500% increases in certain industries of how much it costs for goods and services. One thing I know that has hit really hard is a direct component of the 2008 housing crisis, which is in direct relation to the war in Iraq and how much money we spent on that. Right before then, of course, everyone knows that the banks were going crazy, giving people loans they probably shouldn't have to buy houses. When the crisis hits and the Great Recession hit in 2008, all of a sudden people couldn't pay their mortgages anymore, and the houses were given back to the banks and resold to, guess what, rich people. Now, rich people, I know they had a little bit of a hit too, but they could still buy plenty of property during this time period. If you go from making $75 million in a year down to 65. About $65 million can still buy a lot of property from banks for a great rate, and then turn around and increase the rent and charge people astronomical amounts. I can tell you here in Chicago, There's a couple of different time periods where I was looking all over, not just downtown, north side, south side, west side, going way out in the suburbs, in all directions and looking at the rents. And in 2010, I was paying $800 for a one bedroom. And we're talking about out in Des Plaines.
Mm-hmm.
Skokie, maybe. I'm sorry, Skokie, which isn't too far away from Chicago. In 2015, when I moved out of an apartment that I was living in Chicago, I looked around. A one bedroom had gone from in the general vicinity, not certain aspects of the south side, not Rogers Park, West Rogers Park, not certain parts of the west side. I'm talking about quote unquote livable areas that have a lot less crime. One bedroom was $1,200. In a 5-year time period, average cost of rent went up 50% for a one bedroom. And that's based off of 2015. Now what are we talking about? Right. Even more probably, $1,350, $1,400. It keeps going up, and that's just an example. Dirty, I don't know if you have any examples from Alaska, but I can tell you that here in Chicago, it's ridiculous. And I know in talking to family in different parts of the country, it's ridiculous as well. But if you don't have anything to add, I'm going to go into this Newsweek article about...
I do.
Go ahead. Okay.
Just my wife and I are trying to find a house, and it's crazy. Even a trailer, and it's like, you know, there's been a thing going on around last 4 or 5 years where rental companies will buy up every fucking thing, and then they raise the rent. Trailer parks are included. The housing market is shit. And like people are just selling their houses as is, and it's it's at crazy prices. So it's difficult to find a place, and like they just raise the rent. Alaska, California, New York, Illinois, almost every state. It's like unrealistic. Texas, just expensive. So yeah, it's just it's ridiculous, and I don't know how they expect people to like live and all that. When you can't even afford rent. You need like 5 jobs just to pay the rent and buy.
It's not like it was before, right? Have the dad go to work, the mom raises the kids. You've got 1 or 2 cars. You've got a 3 or 4 bedroom house, right, and a nice double or triple decker. You go to vacation once or twice a year. You have plenty of groceries. All the kids can play all of the football, soccer, hockey that they want. Sign up for all the extracurricular activities. You don't really have to suffer for buying them new clothes every year. Different things like that. Christmas presents, bountiful. The cost of living has changed so much in America from the 1950s to recently, and it's no coincidence that we're doing an episode here about the growth of billionaires in this country.
Yeah.
So moving on to transfer of wealth from the 2008 housing crisis, the 2020 pandemic was another thing that was a transfer of wealth, and it is also part of the ongoing problem of big business versus small business. Big business eating up small business. Really, you know what the American dream used to be is to start a small business, one part of it, to start a small business, and then to watch that business flourish and grow, to have employees, to be able to employ people, maybe even your family, to give good benefits, good payable wages versus where you're living and where you're at. Now the American dream is to start a small business and have a big business buyout and have the owner basically make a couple million off the sale, right, and the big business turns that into a multi-billion-dollar corporation. It's happening so frequently and so often that there's just not a lot of small businesses that survive. I can say here in Chicago, there's always an influx of great restaurants, like family-owned restaurants and different things where they can compete. Now, the 2020 pandemic obviously put a huge damper. If you invested in a restaurant in 2019, right before the pandemic, I really feel sorry for you. I feel horrible for you.
Yeah.
Any type of small business. The reason why is we're going to get to PPE loans here distributed by the government, and how big business actually infiltrated that the opportunity to get these loans, we mentioned Potbelly. I worked for Potbelly. They got caught. Shake Shack got caught taking either businesses making $50 million a year. And dirty, coincidentally, right before I left Potbelly, when I talked about the downturn and opportunity, 2006 when I was there, they opened up 50 stores. The next year they opened up one. It's not any small coincidence that Howard Schultz bought into Potbelly as a stockholder, which we're going to talk about here a little bit, stockholder versus employees, and immediately started to change the culture of the company. It went from the sort of a happy, smiley, the owner that was there before, very nice guy, free food for everybody, every employee gets a free meal, basically give away cookies and stuff to people, keep them coming back, especially if they haven't tried it before. All that changed and they became very tight and very corporate, very stagnant, and basically faceless, and that company never grew outside of Chicago the way that they had once hoped. So that's just an example of how you turn to big corporate power and how they fuck your company rather than help it grow.
Right.
So I'm looking to this Newsweek article about COVID and the PPP loans. It says prior to COVID, more than 30 million small businesses accounted for about half of the GDP, which is gross domestic product, and jobs in America. 30 million small businesses prior to COVID. The other half of the economy is concentrated in 20,000 big companies. So then they go on to talk about how these smaller companies should have been receiving the majority of these small business loans, not Potbelly, not Shake Shack. But they were going to big businesses, and they were going there first.
Yeah.
Which, let me see if there's anything else in this article I want to talk about. For example, PetSmart is a big company that got PPE loans for any of the smaller, like nail salons and small businesses, small restaurants, different things like small laundromats or dry cleaners, which, I don't know, is it a coincidence that those can be owned more by smaller, or a smaller population and maybe people that migrate here to actually invest in these businesses or non-white companies? Don't mean to throw conspiracy theories out there. But that's what happened. And to tie this into student debt relief so we can get through this episode on time, I know that so many people have student debt, and it's such a hypocrisy. And you have people in Congress like Marjorie Taylor Greene and Lauren Boebert saying that this is and super fucking American rich cigar sucking whiskey drinking sellout Bill Maher saying that's not fair. Right. That's not fair to other people that didn't go to college. It's like, you know what? People that went to college went to get a fucking went to get a trade to help people. If you're a nurse or you're somebody that went to get extra education, you might have been forced out of one industry to try to go into another. It's not like you're even really choosing. Some people you're not even choosing in this. You're doing that out of, you have no other choice but to try to do that. Right. Unless you're going to go try to work at McDonald's. And so for Marjorie Taylor Greene and Lauren Boebert to accept small government loans, which they shouldn't have been able to do because they're part of the government, that's a contradiction of interest, conflict of interest. They took that and voted against giving student loan relief to even if you have $100,000 in debt and are making $20,000 or $30,000 a year. Fuck you. That's what they're saying to the American people. Go fuck yourself. Those same people, these low-income people, are still voting for these politicians. But anyway, so they got caught actually saying, you know, no student loan relief for you, but I'm going to take my debt relief and have it be forgiven by the government, which is what happened to a number of these people in Congress.
It's crazy, and they make millions of dollars too. Like their salaries are fucking nauseating. Like it's unbelievable.
Yeah, totally. I mean, how hard is it these days to actually to get into small business, to do small business versus big business? We talked about the old stereotypical efforts by big business. We only talked about Bill Gates. I mean, what he did is, and a lot of what he did was steal people's ideas. I mentioned this earlier. Dare them to try to sue him in court. If you don't have any money and you're trying to get your business off the ground, good luck with that. Suing Microsoft. But the old adage to rich people is, you know, They didn't get rich by writing a lot of checks. You know, they get rich by hoarding the wealth, stealing a lot of their ideas. That's why I think it's okay to have a. That's why I think it's okay to have a maximum wage.
I do too. There's a lot of a lot of old money too. Like Tucker Carlson, he comes from like old money. A lot of these far right douchebags, Ben Shapiro and all, they come from money. They're the biggest like douchebags that talk about the American way and to be manly and all this other fascist bullshit, and you find out they're just rich. They come from wealth and they really don't care about the people that they claim to. It's really hard and it sucks because this is supposed to be the country of opportunity and all that shit. The millions of stories of like, well, I just started this with nothing and
right.
that's unrealistic. All this shit is unrealistic and like the people who voted for Trump and then he created like, the $1 trillion tax cut, like hasn't done shit for us, especially the lower income and the quote unquote working man or woman. It's sick. Like I said, Kanye West, I believe, got a PP loan ripped off the system. Ice Cube, and I love Ice Cube's music and all that, but he's just a real dick, just a real cocksucker, and I just can't believe the cold bloodedness of people where they're so greedy, where it's like there's just this thing where there's no limit, like there's just they have no problem taking, and like they never want to give back, they just want to take, and it's strange. Like I don't get it. Like you think you want to help build this country up, but they don't. You want everybody to be poor. You don't care. Like Bill Maher was talking about one time, he was talking to this one lady, I think Mary Williamson, I think that's her name. She was running for president. She went and met with people on Skid Row. And she's like asking Bill, do you know, cause he's on his like stupid podcast, like smoking a cigar, like you said, trying to look like hip wearing jeans. And he's like, I think it's just, a blown over, and I'm not quoting him exactly, but he's basically like, I drive around, he probably has a limo or a driver, but it's like, I drive around, I don't see homeless people, I don't see. And she asked, well, do you go to Skid Row? And he's like, why would I go to Skid Row? And she's like, exactly. It's like, they don't know. They're in a bubble. They're in a bubble. Like the only time, right. Like the only time he goes anywhere is to go to a dispensary to go buy weed. And, and it's just sick. And there's so many of these fucking assholes. And they, like I said, they live in their own world. And it's like there's more and more homeless people. It's like, remember, you've seen that South Park episode with like the homeless people are like scared to change, and it starts to grow in population, and there's more homeless people. Like, it's kind of really happening, and it's just like I said, it's just making things worse. Like we're a fucking hollow country. We don't have shit. We don't produce shit except maybe like weapons or things that kill people, and it's just it fucking kills me. That it's like there's just millions and billions of dollars, trillions every fucking year. And there's so much money that there shouldn't be poverty. There's enough money in the world that everybody in the world could be fed, taken care of. I mean, not everybody wants to be rich. A lot of people just, they just want to live their life and have a family or, and just be happy and, have friends and enjoy their life and shit. Not everybody needs wealth. To me, it's like, I'm glad I'm not a wealthy person. I mean, I don't know if you've ever met anybody who's like ultra wealthy or famous or anything. It's like, there's a complete, it's psychologically, like some of these people are just fucking, they're so gone where like, they have no idea what the average person lives like. And, it's like they don't have to worry about shit, so they don't have shit to deal with. And it's sad. And we're gonna, we're dying. Like, it's showing in every facet of American life.
Now, going back to student loan relief, I'm not saying across the board validation, every single student loan gets forgiven.
Yeah,
I do agree with the fact that they had these predatory schools that were lying to kids, which happens more often than you think, that they got forgiven first. For all the people that say, what about me? And for Bill Maher to say, like, well, that's not fair to the other people that didn't go to college. It's like, it's not like people that are seeking student loan relief are saying, hey, let's take money away from the incomes of people that didn't go to school and actually and put it towards this. Or, you know what, if you want to go back to school, maybe it should be easier with at least more money going to kids and adults that actually want to go and get some sort of skill that we can use for years to actually better your life too, not just theirs. People act like people are going to school to get this skill to just better their own lives. It's to better your life. I mean, I went to part of my job to go be an RHIT manager is making sure that these hospitals, these emergency rooms get medical records so they can actually properly treat people that go in there that they don't know their medical background because the doctor is somewhere else and they just got shot or they had a heart attack or whatever it is. To make sure you can get the best health care that you can. It's to help you as well, you people out there that hate people that go to college that actually have debt and think that we're trying to suck off the government. It's ridiculous when you have this much debt and you went back to get a skill because your previous job maybe doesn't even exist anymore.
Right.
That should factor into how much you'd have to pay too. What happened to your last job? Why did you leave? Oh boy, it was because of the 2008 recession that was caused by Bush. You know what? Maybe fucking Bush and his family and Cheney and all their rich families should pay for people's fucking student loan relief because they caused the fucking gap in the first place.
Tax the fuck out of them. Yeah, tax these fucking people. Tax them to fucking death. I don't give a shit. It still wouldn't affect them.
Right.
All the student loans can be wiped out. Like, they can forgive all that shit. I don't see why not. It doesn't, corporations get that shit all the time.
Yeah, it's unfair we just talked about the PPE, about how their loans were released, millionaires in Congress, yet students that are out there trying to work everyday lives that are not seeing the returns that they were promised when they actually went to school. They don't get any relief at all. The whole thing is that if you're on the bottom, and if you're towards the bottom, that's what government is fucking for. That's what upward mobility is for, to actually build people up so you're not penniless, so you can actually afford to buy things that rich people don't buy. Rich people buy one yacht. They'll buy a couple of cars and stuff like that.
Right.
You take that money away from thousands of people that will each buy a car apiece and all the piece, then all of a sudden that's when you have the financial crisis. The people that can't, businesses are failing because there's not enough money going around for people to buy things. The other thing, too, is that with the housing crisis back in 2008, maybe we should have actually relieved some of those loans for some of those home buyers so that they could stay in their homes. It was all, and it said, no, let's let the banks take those over and then we'll just transfer more wealth to the rich.
Right.
Something needs to change with this shit. The government needs to represent the fucking people. Guess what? We outnumber them. We outnumber billionaires in this country. The poor and the middle class, we outnumber those motherfuckers 1,000,000 to 1. And I think it's time we start standing up and demanding from our government what we pay in and what they're supposed to do. Right. And I'm looking right at you, Republicans, you fucking assholes. We have to get on to upward mobility. We've got that, stockholders versus employees. And then we're going to be done real quickly. Okay, let me get to... This was a very interesting list that was compiled by Wikipedia. And it's basically countries that have the best upward mobility. People think of America as the ultimate, there's the ultimate stepping stone to go from the different classes. You work hard, you'll go from the lower class to from the middle class. What this index tests is the amount of opportunities by jobs and what these jobs pay and what you have to go through to get these jobs. Are they available? How much education and student loan debt do you have to incur to try to move up to get these jobs and get into these industries? Well, for years, America was the pot overflowing with gold coins, and hey, everybody, you take some for you, some for everybody. Guess what? I'm not gonna go through this entire list right now. I'm gonna talk about countries where it's easier to go from class system to class system economically. Let's see, is America in the top 10? No. That's all Scandinavian countries and Northern European countries. Are they in the middle 10, like from 10 to 20? No. Canada is. Japan is. Australia is. Ireland is. Germany, France. France, who actually taxes their corporations 60 to 70%. No, it's easier to move up there. Oh, where it is? Oh, 21 is the United Kingdom. Now we're getting to Portugal. Jesus. South Korea? South Korea is ahead of the United States as far as upward mobility in their country. The United States right now is number 27. 27.
Yeah.
We are the first generation, Dirty. You and me, we have much less opportunities than our parents have. We have the upward mobility that we had versus our parents had. Now, if you're coming out of college right now, man, I wish you the best luck in the world.
Right.
And if your parents say, hey, you asshole, go get a job, I did it. You can turn around and show them this fucking lip and say, hey, asshole, you're a fucking dumb motherfucker. Because if you actually know anything about those statistics, I'm fucked compared to the way you were. Which makes how many times, Dirty, have you walked around? How many grumpy old fucking white men are there in this country? Man, it's not right the way it used to be.
Right.
You're goddamn right, because you had an opportunity to own things that we don't have. You got your fucking stupid, bastard fucking white-ass mouth up about what the fuck is going on and how easy it is to make a living here in the United States because you're ignorant. You're stupid and ignorant.
Right.
And that's the show, folks. Thank you.
Right. No,
anyway,
I hate that. I hate that fucking argument. That's how it used to be best. And it's just like, are you serious? Like, college was free until they integrated, they integrated schools and colleges, and they started charging money. It's a lot of this, it's crazy. The reason it was better back in the day is because it's like they created a lot of great programs specifically for white people, white men. And once they start integrating, then they start changing it. And you can thank Reagan for that. It's
absolutely.
It's just crazy. Like, I wish, and they used to tax the shit out of people too back in the day. And then you had, there was no problem with that. Now it's just like they don't tax shit and look at our country. It's like taxes are what's up. There was that, did you ever see that video of the guy, he's a historian. I think he's Dutch, and he was on Tucker Carlson's show, and he basically told them, you're rich just like all your Fox friends, but the biggest thing they could do, the government could do to help income inequality is tax the rich. He went to Davos.
Exactly.
He went to Davos, and he fucking like jaw dropped everybody there because it's an event for all the ultra wealthy, and he's just like, yeah. So if you guys just pay more taxes, the world will be a better place. But you don't, so it's a shithole. And I'm paraphrasing, but basically that's what it comes down to. It's like, the Republicans don't want to tax things, but it's like, whose money do you think this is? Like, it's our fucking money. We pay taxes into that, and it's like it goes in your pocket. A lot of this shit goes into people's pockets, and it's fucking, it's crazy. I just, when there was the whole anonymous thing, it was like, it'd be great if some super hacker would fucking just, Robin Hood this shit and give people money, because it's just like they're pocketing, they have all this money, and it's just like you could just give that shit up and you wouldn't even know. Like, it wouldn't even affect you in your life to give up some of that money. A smidgen.
It's no coincidence that in this list of the top 10 and top 20 countries that have the best upward mobility from class to class, the majority of them are Northern and Western European countries that tax the rich a lot more than we do.
Right.
And actually are able to get the tax money to come in. It's not just, they're also have oversight committees to make sure that these rich people are not hoarding the wealth and sending them to other countries to make sure they don't have to pay taxes. Another thing, too, is I just lost it.
You're a frustrating subject.
I got too much stuff in my brain right now. I guess is what I tried to cram this all in. But you know what? I got it now. So like the other thing that American capitalism does when you open up the politics to foreign investors, you open up American companies investors, you open up corporations or people too, and who could be a part of a PAC, a political action committee. Well, you don't have to actually give the members of the political action committee. It could be some motherfucker out in who knows, China or Russia or any in Germany or something like that, and they're investing in American politics. Why? Not for the American people. That's for goddamn sure. They're investing because maybe they can make more money getting involved in American business. So you take these northern and western European countries, the tax the rich. You know, we get the greedy offset businessmen from those countries. Say, why would I stay here when I can go to America and fuck people more?
Right.
And that's what they'll do. That's one thing that American capitalism has not been able to put into the equation of how to properly distribute money is how much is too much for the top earners. How much should people that have foreign interests rather than American interests be able to be involved in American business and American politics? I say very little. But it's not the way that the laws have been created for them, that you can go in and be a part of an American political action committee and make lots of money and make a decision to shut down town and move the industry to a different country. And what the fuck would you give a care about some small town in Wyoming that is decimated? In Southbridge, Massachusetts, where I grew up, and where next door, South Sturbridge, where I grew up, but American Optical moved out of there. Who had shut up, bitch? Who had employed all these people that now is moved to Mexico, and all of a sudden, now you have the stinky, gross town filled with crime and people dealing drugs and different things to be able to make money because you can't make it through work. We did this. We're going to cover very quickly stockholders versus employees. The whole. I don't know the big thing I want to say for the end, but Dirty. We talked about this for a couple of minutes. There's an inherent problem with the amount of power in big companies that stockholders or investors have versus the employees. Mm-hmm. And a lot of, again, I reference Europe. They've been around a lot longer than us. There's a lot of companies there that the employees do have a bigger stake in the company as far as not just upper management, not just executives like here in America where it's just the executives. We're talking about associates that have a bigger vested interest in the company because they do give them amounts of stock. I'm not saying there's zero American companies where people do. We talked about the amount of stock options for poor people here, or associates versus the executives, and it's staunch. And I've talked to people like, whoa, the stock market's it's such a big thing, then go out and buy stock. So what if it's a weapons manufacturing company, whoever it is, where it's going to make the money? You know how you missed the point of this whole fucking episode, and we're talking about what it costs, the inflation versus what people make, of what it takes for the average American family to take a chunk of money that would actually net something and put it into the stock of a company versus, you know, how much college education costs and clothes and entertainment. And, you know, the average high school kid these days doesn't, I mean, for me when I was in high school, it was like, you want a car. Right. And now it's like, you want a car. Oh, you also want a phone. Oh, you also want a laptop computer. Oh, you also want, like, these things that high school kids have these days are so much more expensive than when I was a kid. It's night and day, the difference. Right. I think what needs to happen in America is much more silent stockholders. Stockholders that you want to invest product, you don't get to say shit about what happens to the company. And Populi, where I worked at, is a great excuse. The owner is a great example. The owner was very generous, wanted people to give free food out to people. Sometimes you could write it off on a receipt and say this is for a good customer who comes by, just give them a little bag of cookies or a cookie here, or ice cream there, whatever the hell it is. Right. And then Schultz comes in and a bunch of other investors, they come in and they say, fuck that shit. We're doing away with that. So what happens is that the business doesn't thrive. And I'm not saying that some companies that get tight don't make more money. It's just that you have so many people that are making business decisions that and if the president, the owner basically stepped down from being a CEO. And why? Because if he didn't, they were going to vote him out, the stockholders. They shouldn't have a decision to vote out the CEO. If you want to give money to a company that's making money and enjoy some of the riches, fine. You don't deserve to have the right to say to any company, let's shut down this operation and move it to Mexico because it'll make me more money.
Right.
And the way it is now, the majority of stockholders can get together and out you if you're the president. They don't like the fact that you're too generous, they'll vote you out. They'll put somebody in that actually will do their bidding. And you have so many rich people owning so many different companies and things that they're running away with the country. And Dirty, I'll let you get the last word in, because the last thing I want to say is, with American capitalism, American business, we knew, and I've said this before, we knew there was a major failure when the 2008 Great Recession, I guess it was. When that hit, and American banks were losing money, and they had given all these loans out to people that couldn't pay their mortgage, but we couldn't hold them accountable for their bad business practices. Why? Because they were too big to fail. Too big to fail, and capitalism could not go together. It's the antithesis of the very fucking definition of what it means to be a capitalist American, to be successful, and to thrive and grow. You fail, you step aside, and you let somebody else do it. Don't actually bail them out, and then not bail out some student debt relief. Don't actually bail out some of the people that own the houses in the first fucking place. Don't bail out the middle class. Don't bail out the lower class. Always bail out the upper class. That is a fucking failure. And if we continue to do this, America is going in the wrong direction and will until it's corrected.
Right. Yeah. I agree. I mean, you summed it up pretty good.
All right. Well, let's see. We've been going about an hour. It's actually been about an hour and 20 minutes. I guess last thing when it comes to Dirty, any little things to add? Talking about inflation, maximum wage.
Fuck the rich. Tax them. I just think we need a whole new system regarding income and companies, and like, I just wish the government was more proactive and for the people. I mean, it is supposed to benefit us, but they benefit the rich. I mean, it's in so many different ways. It fucking sucks. So fuck the rich.
Fuck the rich. Okay, one last little thing. I did see from based off of our horror movie episodes that we did previously, I did see Insidious 1 and 2. Really liked them both. The second one was probably as good as the first one. Dirty, have you seen any horror movies since we've done our list?
Yeah, I saw the Babadook like you told me to, and it just beyond sucks.
I put that down on the list. That was not up at the top.
Yeah, anyway, no, I've seen most of the movies. I haven't seen anything new lately. American Horror Story. It's not a movie, but as far as like horror goes,
yeah,
they have. My wife and I right now are watching Coven, the season 3 Coven one. Really fucking good. Talks about there's like 3 historical people they mentioned, and it takes place in New Orleans, so they dig up a lot of like the past, and the things they did. Like this one woman, Marie Laveau, I think that was her name. Anyway, she was a notorious slaver, and she had a house, and she was so evil. She used to torture a lot of her servants and stuff.
10 seconds.
Huh?
You got 10 seconds left.
Oh, okay. I was just gonna say, like, it's good, and they talk about a lot of great things, or a lot of horrible things from the past. But it's great that they mention these things, and they get into a lot of detail. So fuck off.
All right, man. I'm sorry. I thought you were just gonna say like a title without going too much into it. But anyway, all right. That is our time here. Hopefully this will fit on YouTube. No thanks to Dirty Mouth, but that's Dirty Mouth Morgan with heavy-hitting discussion on income inequality. I'm Dylan. Thanks for checking us out, guys.
Thanks, guys.
The Thrash Metal Show next.
Boom.